Have you ever been in a situation where you meet someone new and, start talking and then they ask you, hey, so tell me more about yourself. And at this moment, you just become completely lost and you don't really know what to say. So you usually become nervous very quickly and you say something like, yeah, so I work in marketing and in my free time, I like to play basketball. And when you're saying this, inside, you just want this to be over. And the other person is listening to you, nodding, smiling, and it's like, oh, yeah, nice. And this person is thinking, well, that's not really much, but at least he said something. But actually, telling more about yourself is a huge opportunity to make a good impression and connect with the person that you're talking to. So in this video, I will show you 5 most common mistakes that people make when they're introducing themselves. And also we'll talk about how to avoid them. So the next time, you'll sound like a perfect communicator. And if you're new to the channel, then welcome! My name is Nikita, and here I talk about practical communication tips for everyday life. Now, without further ado, let's roll. Mistake number 1, being not prepared.
You are not prepared.
The first, most common mistake that people have when it comes to introducing themselves is that people simply don't really understand what to talk about. And I was in this situation myself. Back in the days, it was 12 years ago, I was in my 11th grade. I had to switch schools, so I got a new class, right? And I was sitting there, this was 1st of September, right? So this is the time where here people start, new education year. And the teacher saw me and she's like, oh, looks like we have a new student. So what's your name? Oh, cool. So how about you will just go stand up and introduce yourself in front of all of the class, right? So we will get to know more about you. And I was just sitting there, somewhere in the middle of the class, like that, was just enjoying my peace. And now all of a sudden I had to get up and I had to tell about myself. And I remember I'm sitting up and I don't really know what to say. So I'm like, yeah, so I'm Nikita. I was in college, last year, but I didn't really like it. So I decided to go back to 11th grade for the last year. And then after that, I'll go to university. Yeah, something like that. Yeah. I was like very stressed. It was pretty embarrassing, and I also thought that was cringe. And probably my classmates also thought that was cringe, but I hope that they don't really remember about it. So the specific problem why I failed to introduce myself, I simply didn't really know what to say. And I think that there are a lot of people who are in a situation like this. And the solution to that is extremely simple. All you need to do, you just need to think about this in advance. So let's think again, okay? What can you tell about yourself? So the first thing that you can tell about yourself is your demographic, right? So where you're from. The next thing is that, what do you currently do? You're either at work or maybe you're studying, but that's all general information, right? The third thing is that you can dive a little bit deeper and you can talk about your previous experience. So maybe you just switched jobs, but before that you were in a company, and leading a very, very big project. So maybe your previous experience, your future plans, or maybe another project that you're working on in your spare time. And the fourth thing that you can talk about is some information from your personal life. Your hobbies, your interests, or maybe if you have pets, you can also share information like that. So the full introduction will sound like, hey, I'm Nikita, I'm from Ukraine. I work as a YouTube coach and consultant. I help experts to build personal brands and gain clients using YouTube. I also have a YouTube channel where I talk about practical communication tips for everyday life. I decided to start this project simply because I see that a lot of young people have problems with this, with socializing with others. And I think that the reason for that is because of technology. Technology right now is ubiquitous and people use it a lot, and we're losing this skill simply communicating and build connection with the others. In my free time, I like to go to the gym, read books, and I also play board games such as Go, poker, chess, and something like that. And now, if you were listening to this, my short introduction speech, you could ask a very reasonable question. Well, Nikita, so you told us where you're from, but wouldn't it be weird in some situations? Imagine that you're from New York, right? And you just decided to go to your local gym. You come to your local gym, you're working out, you saw another person who's also working out as well, right? You saw, you looked at this person, you looked back, smiled, started a little bit of a small talk, and then, you did your set, and then in the break he asked you, hey, so tell me more about yourself. And you have your speech fully prepared, so you start with, yeah, I'm from New York. And he's like, no shit! For real? Sounds weird, right? I mean, he would probably think that you're a total psycho. And that's the next mistake that people make, that they're not really adjusting their speech to the context. Understand a very important thing, that your speech, like introduction of yourself, will not be the same in every context and in every situation, because there are different contexts and information about yourself will make or will not make sense depending on the context of the situation. So if, for instance, if you're at the gym and you met this person, right, and you start telling, hey, I'm from this city, right? Well, he'll think that you're crazy. However, If, for instance, you enrolled in some online course, right, and there's a cohort, and this is the first meeting where people are just talking, right, and introducing themselves, and there are people from all over the world, you can say, hey, yeah, I'm from New York, and it will be totally reasonable. The same thing happens when you're introducing yourself in the casual environment, or this is some networking business event. So if it's a casual environment, you can tell a little bit about what you're doing, right, but it will be like maybe one sentence, and you will be focusing on other parts of your life. However, if it's a networking event and the person gives you, his business card and says, hey, so what do you do? Right, well, it makes total sense to tell more about what you're doing and dive deeper a little bit about your work. So keep that in mind, okay? When you're working on your self-presentation speech, you're thinking about where you're from, what you're doing, your future plans for second project or, previous experience, and also some personal interests of yours, but you will not be saying all of those 4 in every situation. And just think about all of those 4 in advance, so no matter what situation is, you will be prepared. So your self-presentation will not be the same every single time and will be varied from person to person. And another mistake happens to people when they had an opportunity to introduce themselves, but they failed. So they think, you know what, enough is enough. Next time, I will not make this mistake. So what they start doing, they write this whole speech, and then they start rehearsing it, improving it, and remembering it, word for word. So they know that the next time, when the opportunity strikes, they will sound 10 out of 10, okay? They will be perfect. And when they finally get this chance to introduce themselves one more time, they do like that. Hey, so tell me more about yourself. Oh yeah, sure, no problem. So my name is Nikita, and I work as a YouTube coach and consultant. I help experts to build their personal brand and scale revenue through YouTube. I work with clients who are usually from— Whoa. Bro, wait, chill, Santiago, okay? That's not LinkedIn. See what's the problem was? Right? I was rehearsing it that much that it just sounded robotic. And the problem with sounding robotic is that it kills authenticity. A very important thing when you're talking to other person is that you're making a connection with the person. And when it sounds too rehearsed, too robotic, just this connection simply doesn't work, right? On paper, it sounds perfectly. You say everything you want to say, you're very clear, you're very concise. But in practice, something is missing, right? And what's missing is this connection. So my recommendation here would be is that when you're thinking about how to introduce yourself, learn this structure. Like, first of all, say this, do not learn the precise words. You don't have to remember this by heart. And another problem that comes to delivering a speech, and well, self-introduction speech is also still a speech, right? Just about yourself, is that people become shy and not really confident when delivering it. But when it comes to the speech, it's not only about what you say, it's also about how you say it. And even if you say everything right, if you're not really confident in your delivery, it will ruin it. It's very, very common in high stressful situations. So for instance, if it's a job interview that, it's your dream job and you're very, very stressful when it comes to the interview, right? Or maybe you're on a date with a person that you really, really like. So for instance, I'm on a date and there's a girl that I really like, right? And she asked me, hey, so yeah, nice to meet you finally here. So tell me more about yourself. Oh yeah, sure. So I work as a YouTube coach and consultant, and I also have a YouTube channel where I talk about practical communication tips for everyday life. See, what I said was all right, but that delivery ruined everything. When you're introducing yourself, you have to believe in what you're saying, because it's one thing to say, hey, I work in a marketing department, and it's another thing, yeah, I work in the marketing department. You're saying the same thing, right? But the first person sounds like a professional, and the second person doesn't sound like a professional at all. You need to show that you're confident and competent. And for this, use your non-verbal communication, okay? Maintain eye contact with the person that you're talking to. Do not sit like that, okay? Good posture, proper body language. Also with the tonality of your voice, show that you're warm, that you're positive towards this person, but also confident in what you're saying. And the less common mistake that comes to self-presentation is that sometimes people confuse self-presentation with autobiography. It's one problem when you ask the person to tell more about themselves and they just give you 2 words, hey, yeah, I'm Nikita, I work in sales. And it's another problem when you ask the person to tell more about himself and, the person just goes, oh yeah, that's my chance, baby, now you'll know. They just go all in mode. They say all of information that they know about themselves, so now you'll know it as well. They're just talking for like 5 minutes straight, telling everything about their life that you don't even care. So it'll be something like, yeah, I'm Nikita, I'm from Kiev, Ukraine. I was born in 1996 in a small town in Nergadar, but then I moved into Kiev when I was 6. I finished that school, then I went to that university, got a major in this thing. I also met a girlfriend, her name is this, we're planning to get married, we have kids. In my free time, I like all of the information, right? So it becomes very, very detailed, very, very overwhelming, and basically people will not be listening. That's the problem. Look, between self-introduction and autobiography, there's a difference. The goal of the self-introduction is basically just to give this person, a brief picture about who you are. And it's like you're, in short, telling about all of the areas of your life that the person might be interested in, right? And if the person is really interested in that, maybe you have something in common, or maybe the person has a interest in like this specific, part of your life. The person can ask more and more questions and dive deeper and get to know you better, right? But you do not have to say everything at once, right? The person will get to know you with time. The goal of self-introduction is that to show that you're competent and you're an interesting human being. And it's a good idea to talk to you more and find out more about you. So by avoiding these mistakes, next time you'll introduce yourself perfectly, make a good impression, and connect with others with ease. If it was useful for you, then consider subscribing, because here I talk about more practical communication tips for everyday life. My name is Nikita, and I'll see you next time.